Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
I posted a video, my first video actually, was about the Pope and the ushering in of a one-world religion, which is what is to come as we usher in a new world order, a one-world government, and the Antichrist. I had to take that video down because of copyright reasons, but it was the very first one I did, so not a lot of people saw it. So I wanted to just repost. This isn't a repost. I wanted to redo a video on the Pope because, you know, the Pope continues to just be really trendy. And of course, today he's announced that he is now joining Instagram, and his first post is he's asking everybody to pray for him, which is very suspicious that the Pope is asking for people to pray for him. I think there's a lot of people out there that need prayers. I don't know if the Pope would be one of them, unless, of course, the Pope is saying, pray for me, because of all the sins I've committed and the human sacrifice, since we all know the Vatican is a part of the Illuminati order, the Jesuit order. And it doesn't take much to even see that when you look around the Vatican and all the signs and the symbols that are there letting you know exactly what they are all about, as well as stories that have leaked over the centuries about what's really gone on underground at the Vatican. But I want to just talk about this one world religion video that the Pope released a few months ago. I did a video on it, like I said, but I'm not sure that everybody out there knows about it. So I just wanted to redo this video and talk about it because it's so blatantly obvious what's going on here. And as I've been talking about on this channel, in the end times, we know, the Antichrist is going to be coming preaching peace and love, and everybody's going to fall for it. And that's exactly what the Pope is doing here. He's combining all of the religions into one religion is what the Pope is talking about doing. Right? So he has this commercial. He says, most of the planet's inhabitants declare themselves believers. This should lead to dialogue among religions. We should not stop praying for it and collaborating with those who think differently. Then we get a Lama who says, I have confidence in Buddha. A rabbi, I believe in God, he says, even though we know that's not true. The Catholic priest, I believe in Jesus Christ. The Islamic leader, I believe in God Allah. And then Pope Francis says, many think differently, feel differently, seeking God or meeting God in different ways. In this crowd, in this range of religions, there's only one certainty we have for all. We all are children of God, which is true. We all are children of God. So he's manipulating words here, of course, because we all are children of God. And like I said, it's going to be hard in these times to convince people of what's going on because it's hard to speak against love and peace because people will say something's wrong with you, that you're filled with hate. You see all these movements, stop the hate, block the hate, anti-bullying stuff. So anything that goes against love and peace, people are going to look at you like you're psychotic. That's exactly why this is very easy for them right now, this control they have on society. Because if anybody out there says, well, there's something wrong with this message, and the message is believe in love, they're going to look at you like something's wrong with you. But the message should always be Jesus Christ, not believing in love. It's a belief in Jesus Christ because he's the only way to our Father in heaven. But the Pope doesn't seem to care about that. The Pope is talking about combining these four religions into one. So the Pope goes on to say, the Lama goes on to say, I believe in love. The rabbi, the priest, and the Islamic leader, they all believe in love, which I've been talking about over and over. We saw it at the Super Bowl, believe in love. Everywhere, believe in love, believe in love, believe in love. Okay, the Antichrist is coming in the name of peace and love. We know that from Scripture. And then the Pope goes on to say, I hope you'll spread my prayer request this month, that sincere dialogue among men and women of different faiths may produce the fruits of peace and justice. I have confidence in your prayers. Nowhere does Pope Francis talk about Jesus Christ being the only way to heaven. Okay, the Pope is the head of the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church, which is supposed to be the church, that was built on the back of Peter, the rock. Okay, and look what it's turned into. Jesus' name is now being mixed with Allah, being mixed with Buddha, being mixed with all of these religions of the world into one. And yet no Catholics are in an uproar about this because it's wrapped in a bow, and the bow is love. So people say, well, Jesus preached love and peace, which Jesus did preach love and peace, but he also preached many other things, which involve taking up a sword against evil and exposing Satan and his deeds and his followers. Things that Christians are too lukewarm to realize because they don't think that that stuff exists. As part of the reason for this channel is to expose that these people are out there doing this stuff. These people that the Bible warns about, these followers of Lucifer. But the Pope is more interested in universal love than spreading the scriptures and trying to get everybody to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Now, I know a lot of people who are watching this video already know that the Pope's a scam and the Pope's a fraud, but there are some who will stumble upon this that truly believe in the Pope. We saw the mass hysteria that occurred when the Pope came to America, right? I mean, if that's not enough to convince you that the Pope is on the other side, playing, worshiping the beast, which he is doing, I don't know what is. He was here, okay, parading around in Washington, D.C., the most satanic place on the earth. But then you get celebrities who are atheist, okay, tweeting, talking about how cool and hip the Pope is, like Bill Maher, other celebrities who don't believe in Jesus Christ, promoting and giving their blessing to the Pope, that they like the Pope, that the Pope is great, right? That the Pope is great. Because the Pope is coming here as his own false idol, which is what he is, and a false prophet. Because he's coming here rejoicing in the mass hysteria that is for him and not for Jesus Christ. Of course, he still will mention Jesus' name once in a while because he pretty much has to. I think maybe then people will get a little bit obvious. But the entire thing should be about Jesus Christ, not about a pope, not about a man. Who cares about this guy? You don't need somebody in the middle between you and Jesus Christ. Okay, if you have the Holy Spirit with you, you don't need to go to a man. There isn't a bridge. He's not a bridge, but that's what they claim. He's a bridge between God and us men here. So pray for him. Give him strength. Give him courage. Then, of course, you get the Pope. The Pope is walking around, instead of constantly preaching about Jesus Christ, which is what he should be doing, the Pope is meeting with people like Leonardo DiCaprio, right? We talked about that. Leonardo DiCaprio, a Kabbalah follower, right? Believes in magic and witchcraft and all the satanic things that are in the Kabbalah. Meeting with him to talk about the environment, right? And for those of you who don't know, this whole global warming scam, this environment scam, it is a depopulation scheme is what it is. The whole reason for this global warming thing that they've created is to have an excuse for depopulation, to try to tax you on air. I mean, there's so many ridiculous things behind it, but the Pope is spending time worrying about that. And if you ask me, if the Pope or any of these head leaders are supposed to be representing Jesus Christ and are supposed to be disciples of Christ, then the whole message should always be about Jesus Christ. That's it. Not about world events. He gets involved in politics with Donald Trump and things like that. It's such a joke. It really is. But I wanted to do this video just to point this out, because this one world religion is enough of a sign for anyone out there who is on the edge about believing in what's going on. Okay, anyone out there who is a follower of the Pope. There is no way that these religions should be mixed. Jesus Christ is the only way. Okay, the God that the Pope is referring to is Satan, the God of this world. That's who he's referring to. And he wants you to give up on Jesus and believe in love. I've been talking about it. We show the Oprah video, these other videos where they talk about the power of now. This is a new age deception, and the Pope is the frontman for it. Because he's walking around preaching, believing in love, believing in love, believing in love. Let's combine Buddha with Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Let's combine a deity with Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God. And we have the Pope, the frontman of the Catholic Church, doing this. And the sheep who follow the Catholic Church don't have a clue what's going on. They're just, oh, the Pope's so wonderful. They can't even see through something like this where the Pope is asking to combine religions. Jesus Christ is the only way, the only truth. The only way to our Father is through Jesus Christ. So by getting rid of Jesus Christ and saying, yes, Catholics and Jews and Buddhists and Islamic people should all get together, and together we'll all believe in the same God and leave Jesus' name out of it. Guess what? You're all going to hell. Everyone's going to hell. Because belief in Jesus Christ is the only way to get to heaven. And if the Pope isn't pushing that, it shows you what a scam and a setup it is. I can't believe how obvious this is, too. And like I said, I did this video 2 months ago, ranting about it. So my rant isn't as extreme as that one was. But how can you not see the signs? How can you even think to combine these gods of all of these religions with Jesus Christ, who is the only truth, the only life? He is the only way to heaven. And the Pope himself is saying, let's enough war, enough of this stuff. Let's all combine into one so we could stop this fighting. And all the idiots are going, that sounds great. The Pope's so cute, isn't he? He's such a great guy. He's so hip and cool. He's on Instagram. He's on Twitter. He's meeting Leonardo DiCaprio. Give me a break. If you can't see the signs of the times, You need to take your blindfolds off immediately. Go wash your eyes out, okay? Go wash your eyes out. Go clean your ears out and wake up to what's going on. Because this is the end times. And the Pope and this universal one world religion is the beginning of the end. And if you can't see that, I really feel bad for you. Okay? So don't spend your time praying for the Pope. Okay? Pray for your brothers and sisters who need prayers. This guy doesn't need any prayer because he doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. Clearly, if he's saying to combine these religions, he does not believe in Jesus Christ. He does not understand his message. Well, he probably understands his message. He just denies him. Okay? Because he's not preaching that Jesus Christ is the only way and the truth. He's preaching universal, new age, believe in love, believe in this new age crap. Period. That's what he's saying. So don't fall for it. Okay? You don't need a man like the Pope, okay, to be one with God, to be one with Jesus Christ. It's a scam. The whole thing is a scam. And this is just a blatantly obvious sign of what's going on. This one world religion is the first step in the new world order. There'll be a one world religion, a one world government, and then there'll be world peace under martial law and enslavement. That is what is to come. So keep praying to Jesus Christ only. Do not pray to the Pope or for the Pope. Pray to Jesus Christ. Pray to the Holy Spirit. Do not fall victim of this. Thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you. Peace be with you.
Papa Francesco, è con grande piacere che le porgo il mio saluto e le esprimo la grande gioia di tutti quelli che sono qui presenti per averci ricevuti e dato l'opportunità di trascorrere alcuni minuti con lei. La storia delle tre istituzioni qui rappresentate, ossia l'Università Gregoriana, l'Istituto Biblico e l'Istituto Orientale, ci ricorda che esse sono state affidate alla Compagnia di Gesù dai suoi predecessori e noi abbiamo cercato di essere fedeli, come ne siamo stati capaci, alla missione originaria, quella cioè di servire la Chiesa. Quella cioè di servire la Chiesa.
With varying fortunes and making slower progress as time went on, the Jesuit order at last reached the pinnacle of its power and prestige in the early 18th century. It had become more influential and more wealthy than any other organization in the world. It held a position in world affairs that no oath-bound group of men has ever held before or since. The Jesuits were masters of the courts of almost all the Catholic kings and sovereigns, wrote Saint Simon in his memoirs, and Father Cordara, Society of Jesus, admitted that nearly all the kings and sovereigns of Europe had only Jesuits as directors of their consciences, so that the whole of Europe appeared to be governed by Jesuits only. In the Dark and Middle Ages, whoever dared to think independently of Catholicism was mercilessly silenced by Catholic sword and fire. Following the birth of Protestantism, the Catholic Church, in its attempt to annihilate it, plunged Europe into a sea of blood. Catholic absolutism, owing to its ability to attack any man, culture, or civilization anywhere and at any time, if permitted to grow, will repeat all the horrors of the past, Catholicism and totalitarianism being indivisible. Like Siamese twins, the two cannot be separated. The Sons of Loyola are today, and may we say more than ever, the leading wing of the Roman Church. As well, if not better disguised than of old, they remain the most eminent ultramontanes, the discreet but efficacious agents of the Holy See throughout the world, the camouflaged champions of its politics, the secret army of the papacy. There is no record in history of an association whose organization has stood for 300 years unchanged and unaltered by all the assaults of man and time, and which has exercised such an immense influence over the destinies of mankind. The Jesuit may be individually honest unless the interest of his order obliges him to be otherwise, for there are no considerations of religion, honesty, or virtue which he does not feel himself bound peremptorily and at all times to sacrifice to this one supreme consideration. The end sanctifies the means, is his favorite maxim, and as his only end, as we have shown, is the order. At its bidding, the Jesuit is ready to commit any crime whatsoever. But there is a religious society, the tendency of which is highly dangerous, and which should never have been admitted into the territories of the Empire. This, the Society of Jesus. Its doctrines are subversive of all monarchical principles. The general of the Jesuits desires to be a sovereign master, the sovereign of sovereigns. Everywhere that the Jesuits are tolerated, they strive for power at any price. Their society is by nature fond of ruling, and nourishes, therefore, an irreconcilable hatred of all existing power. Any action, any crime, however atrocious it may be, is meritorious if committed for the interest of the society, or by the orders of its general. Romanism is not a religion merely, but a political system. The Constitution of the Church of Rome may be considered the most formidable combination that was ever formed against the authority and security of civil government, as well as against the liberty, reason, and happiness of mankind. Peace and prosperity are impossible under papal and priestly rule, as all history attests. The papacy, says Prince Bismarck, has ever been a political power which, with the greatest audacity and with the most momentous consequences, has interfered in the affairs of this world. The history of England since the Reformation could be written as a recurrent and generally combined attack of the Roman Catholic Church and the totalitarian state. The public is practically unaware of the overwhelming responsibility carried by the Vatican and its Jesuits in the start of the two world wars, a situation which may be explained in part by the gigantic finances at the disposition of the Vatican and its Jesuits, giving them power in so many spheres, especially since the last conflict. There is abundance of incontestable proof that the forces of religion, as represented by the Catholic Church, have succeeded in dominating the political and social field, and that there exists a close bond between them and the origins, methods, and objectives of the whole Nazi-fascist movement in Europe. Furthermore, this domination has already spread to America. History proves that in every attempt made during the past half-century against the liberal progress of mankind, the Jesuit order, as a leader of Catholic action, has played a decisive role. We can go even so far as to state that Nazi fascism had its origin in the Society of Jesus, and that, like other movements in the past analogous to fascism today, it was planned to serve the traditional aims of the disciples of Ignatius Loyola. I learned much from the order of the Jesuits, said Hitler. Until now, there has never been anything more grandiose on the earth than the hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church. I transferred much of this organization into my own party. I'm going to let you in on a secret. I am founding an order. In my burghs of the order, we will raise up a youth which will make the world tremble. Hitler then stopped, saying that he couldn't say anymore. The SS organization had been constituted by Himmler, according to the principles of the Jesuits order. The regulations and the spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius of Loyola were the model Himmler tried to copy exactly. The Righteous Führer SS, Himmler's title as Supreme Chief of the SS, was to be the equivalent of the Jesuits General, and the whole structure of the direction was a close imitation of the Catholic Church's hierarchical order. A medieval castle near Paderborn in Westphalia, and called Webelsburg, was restored. It became what could be called a SS monastery. A clever masquerade has always been characteristic of the political activities of Jesuit Catholicism. Jesuitry is a word in all our dictionaries that is defined as synonymous with subtle duplicity, indirection, and disingenuousness. History is witness to the undeniable fact that the Jesuit order, founded in 1540 for the express purpose of counter-reformation, has excelled in the art of Machiavellian duplicity. It is an organization founded on military lines to fight for the political restoration of the Roman papacy, and is the only order in the Catholic Church that binds its members by special oath for this purpose. The Jesuits take a solemn oath to fight a crusade for Catholic restoration, the success of which has always depended first on the complete destruction of Protestantism and its increasing liberalizing effects on political and social life for the past 400 years. For it was Protestantism that undermined the political power of the papacy in the past. It made religion a matter of individual choice. It liberated the individual from the authoritarianism of kings and popes. It freed the civil state from ecclesiastical interference. It caused non-Catholic governments to deny outright the vital claim of the Church of Rome to be, by divine right, a universal, independent entity and superior to all other forms of government. It took away from the Church of Rome direct control over all the institutions that go to make up the life of man: marriage, education, charitable, cultural, and recreational activities. The SS organization had been built up by Himmler on the principles of the order of the Jesuits. The service statutes and spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius Loyola formed a pattern which Himmler assiduously tried to copy. Absolute obedience was the supreme rule. Each and every order had to be accepted without question. The Righteous Führer SS, Himmler's title as the supreme head of the SS, was intended to be the counterpart of the Jesuits General of the Order, and the whole structure of the leadership was adopted from these studies of the hierarchic order of the Catholic Church. The intermeddling of the society in the affairs, political, ecclesiastical, and civil, of many countries is related in numerous works and repeatedly produced the suppression and expulsion of the order, though it constantly reappeared with new names. In 1716, the French army was infested with Jesuitical and anti-Jesuitical societies. The Parliament of Paris suppressed them in 1762. They were abolished by papal bull in 1773 at the demand of France, Spain, Portugal, Parma, Naples, and Austria. They are, however, still to be found everywhere, and they hold considerable property in England. A modern writer justly calls them the Black International. Historically, the Jesuits are given credit for the Gunpowder Plot of 1605, fomenting the 30 Years' War, the encouragement of the aspiration of Mary Stuart, which led to her execution, the revocation of the Edict of Nantes by Louis XIV, 1685, and numerous other great events of history. Now Rome is perfectly consistent in her demand for the control of civil government. If her teaching were true, that there is no salvation outside the Church, she is bound to compel all to belong to the Church, even if she has to call in the civil power to help her to enforce submission. This power she has ever invoked and utilized. It is well known that the Jesuits were expelled from every country of Europe. and even put under the ban of the Pope and dissolved by papal bull on account of their restless intrigues in every country, their nefarious and immoral policy, and their audacious crimes. Of course, the Jesuit writers on the various papers and periodicals take every side in politics. It matters not whence the public are led, so long as they are ultimately led to the desired point. Since the great upheaving of 1789, the efforts of the Jesuits have been persistently directed to a recovery of their former ascendancy over states and rulers. Before the revolution, they insinuated themselves into courts and gained influence directly over princes and statesmen. Since 1789, power has been attached to electoral majorities, that is, the people, and to newspapers, that is, the press, and to money, that is, financial power. The whole effort of the Jesuits has therefore been directed to manipulating these three sources of influence. Are we indeed so beggared as to be dependent on the charities of the Holy Alliance and the Jesuits of Europe for funds and teachers to educate our youth in what? The principles of despotism, forbidden patriotism. We cannot be too often reminded of the double character of the enemy who has gained foothold upon our shores. For although popery is a religious sect, and on this ground claims toleration side by side with other religious sects, yet popery is also a political, a despotic system, which we must repel as altogether incompatible with the existence of freedom. I repeat it, popery is a political, a despotic system, which must be resisted by all true patriots. In what manner did the Jesuits recruit themselves? There are in Europe a great many noble but poor families who, still ignorant, blind, and superstitious, keep faithfully this device: nobility, royalty, papacy. The Jesuits, who for several centuries have dreamed and secretly endeavored to get for the Pope the universal monarchy, hate kings and constitutional governments. There are families now about the country in which Masonry is a forbidden topic because its introduction would revive the old quarrel and turn the peaceful tea table into a scene of hot and interminable contention. There are still old ladies, male and female, about the country who will tell you with grim gravity that, if you trace up Masonry through all its orders, till you come to the grand tip-top head Mason of the world, you will discover that that dread individual and the chief of the Society of Jesuits are one and the same person. At about the time Macbeth was first performed, the king, saved from death by what he regarded as a miracle, praised the wisdom of the Venetian Republic for the measures she had taken against the Jesuits. O blessed and wise Republic, how well she knows the way to preserve her liberty, for the Jesuits are the worst and most seditious fellows in the world. They are slaves and spies, as you know. He then embarked on a discourse about the society. By an able induction from all the kingdoms and provinces of the world, he demonstrated that they have always been the authors and instruments of all the great disturbances which have taken place. The organization of the hierarchy is a complete military despotism, of which the Pope is the ostensible head, but of which the Black Pope is the real head. The Black Pope is the head of the order of the Jesuits, and is called a general. He not only has the absolute command of his own order, but directs and controls the general policy of the Church. He is the power behind the throne, and is the real potential head of the hierarchy. The whole machine is under the strictest rules of military discipline. The whole thought and will of this machine to plan, propose, and execute is found in its head. And now we come to the last desperate conspiracy to overthrow our government and make the rebellion a success by a resort to the favorite policy of the Jesuits, that of assassination. Jesuits, an ecclesiastical order proverbial through the world for cunning, duplicity, and total want of moral principle, an order so skilled in all the arts of deception that even in Catholic countries, in Italy itself, it became intolerable and the people required its suppression. The popular feeling in Venice, 1606, when the Jesuits were driven out from that city, expressed itself most forcibly. Great crowds had accompanied the exiles to the seashore, and the farewell cry which resounded after them over the waves was, "Ande in malora," get away and woe be to you. That cry was echoed throughout the 2 following centuries, says Michelet, who gives this statement in Bohemia in 1618, in India in 1623, and throughout all Christendom in 1773. The Jesuits are famous as confessors. The reason is obvious. The confessional is a window through which to explore the secrets of families and neighborhoods. I cannot better close this note than in the words of Lincoln himself. In 1864 he said, "If the American people could learn what I know of the fierce hatred of the priests of Rome against our institutions, our schools, our most sacred rights, and our so dearly bought liberties, they would drive them out as traitors."
We're here at Blessed Sacrament Parish, the Archangel LA, to meet someone who's been nicknamed the Black Pope. He's actually the Jesuit general, and his name is Very Reverend Adolfo Nicholas S.J. We're here to say hi and talk to him about his nickname and his extreme oath of the Jesuits.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Please open our heart. Please open our heart.
Let us pray. May Almighty God have mercy on us, forgive us our sins, and bring us to everlasting life. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We are tired of wars. We are tired. You just came out of a campaign, election, and the inauguration of a new president. And you know, and I partially only from the sidelines, we have been exposed to 1 year and a half of words and words and words and words. Political, or literary, or even religious words. Because also religious words have been manipulated, used with such abundance for things that were not real, that we get tired of them. The prophet comes as one who sees things with the eyes of God, because the prophets bring also the shadow side of reality. And they tell us also where things are not going according to the heart of God. And they speak of the anger of God and the sadness of God. We live in a world that has become so difficult that people do not know anymore where the causes are of the pain or of the distress or of the difficulties we have. With globalization, now responsibilities are diluted. And nobody knows who is behind anything.
Oh, now you can take your picture with him and everything.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be having a video check to get you two together while you ask him why he's a Black Pope.
I should point that out, how liberal everything is. Hello, I really enjoyed your service. Thank you so much. I was wondering, I had a couple of questions. I was wondering if you could clear something up for me.
Maybe later, because
Oh, just really quick. Why do they call you the Black Pope?
Oh, that started in the 19th century.
Did it really?
Yeah, but I don't like it because
No.
it's in terms of power, no?
Yeah.
Because they thought that the general of the Jesuits had a lot of power, but he wears black, so Black Pope.
Oh, maybe, well,
But
yeah.
I'm not Pope,
And
and
you
I
don't
have
have
no
a fish
power.
on you. And I see that there's a lot of liberal symbols here. One of the things in your Jesuit high oath, I think it is. It says something about, furthermore, you promised to declare that we'll, at the first opportunity, seek war at any opportunity against heretics, Protestants, liberals.
What is that?
See here? And that will spare neither age nor sex nor condition, and I will hang, waste, boil, flays. You've never seen this before?
No, I've never seen it.
Strangle, bury alive, and it's horrible. And I was like, look, it's in the congressional record.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Can I get a picture?
As long as you don't do this.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I get a picture?
It's up to him now because he's
Oh, okay. Can I kiss with you?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
But he was very confused. He'd never seen it before. I told him it was in the congressional record. He said that he might talk to me later about it, but there's a big line. So do we want to wait and talk to him later about it? Just so that you know what I was asking him. I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, to wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants, and liberals, as I am directed to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate forever the execrable race. And then it goes on to say some other stuff. But you can look this up. It's on the internet. I just want to read this on camera real quick. I'm just trying to find a private moment. He said that I could talk to him afterwards when the line was not so busy.
You need to go outside with all that.
Okay.
Because right now he's not going to read nothing because he's going to go somewhere else.
Oh, okay. So will you have him fully scheduled? Because he said he'd talk to me afterwards. He probably doesn't know his own schedule, I imagine. Yeah.
So I need you to go outside. You can't take pictures in here, okay?
Well, there's a lot of people taking pictures.
You didn't get permission to have a camera, okay? So thank you. Okay?
Do you think we were bothering him?
I think so with your letting him.
Okay.
We can't have that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to clear something up.
I know, but now's not the time.
It's never the time.
I read recently an article, and the title was, "I am so happy we have a financial crisis." A very strange title. And the point of the article was that we have been living a false reality. We have been living a false economy, false relationships, false projections. And now the crisis brings us down to reality and to realize that simple life is what is needed. We need simple life, but a shared life. Simple life full of compassion so that nobody around us suffers and has the difficulties that many are going through today. This is prophetic. And I don't speak about the political authority of people with power. It's not pure muscle, it's not pure energy that moves things. It's a war that can move hearts, that can move people.
Hi, Jeremy, nice to meet you. Thank you for what you said about liberation theology. I wanted to know whether you would say a word. A lot of the people around the world know that the attacks on 9/11 were an intelligence black op. And so we were wondering whether you would say a word to support a real investigation that would get to the bottom of it, because it seems to have set off a fake holy war or a religious war.
It's very difficult to know.
No, but we know that Bin Laden didn't do it, and we know that there are both Zionist networks, I'm a Jewish man, and there are also Jesuit networks that are helping cover it up. Will you say something, sir?
We thank you very much for coming.
Will you say something about?
Probably not. Probably not. Thank you very much. Because this is not the proper
where is the proper forum, sir? Where are the real religious people that are willing to stop the killing?
Sir,
where are the real religious people that will stop the killing?
I know you need to go.
How many innocent people, Jews, Christians, Muslims, need to die before the religious people will tell the truth?
You need to go.
Come on.
You need to go.
Where is the proper?
You need to go.
If a religious function is not the proper place for truth, where is the proper place for truth, ma'am? Where is the proper place for truth?
Time and place for it.
Where is the proper place for truth in a religious community?
I can't get into it. Okay, go ahead.
Here's the thing, ma'am. We know that those attacks in 9/11 were done by intelligence networks. I'm a Jewish man. I know that there was Israeli networks involved, and we know there were.
Mr. President, this is the first head of state, Pope Benedict XVI, that you will ever greet on a tarmac. I was stunned to learn this. Why are you going and greeting him at an airstrip? Usually the heads of states come here.
Because he is a really important figure in a lot of ways. One, he speaks for millions. Two, he doesn't come as a politician, he comes as a man of faith. And three, that I so subscribe to his notion that there's right and wrong in life, that moral relativism has the danger of undermining the capacity to have more hopeful and free societies, that I want to honor his convictions as well.
You read his book on Europe, I'm told. What do you take generally from his appraisal of Europe and the world, and why is this relationship between the United States and the Holy See so important to you?
Well, first of all, it's important to me because the Holy Father represents and stands for some values that I think are important for the health of the country.
Why is this relationship between the United States and the Holy See so important to you?
Well, first of all, it's important to me because the Holy Father represents and stands for some values that I think are important for the health of the country. And when he comes to America, millions of my fellow citizens will be hanging on his every word. I do know that in order for a president to be effective, he better bring a set of principles from which he will not deviate and articulate them as clearly as he can, and then not worry about, immediate popularity, because popularity comes and goes, but what doesn't change are solid principles. And I'm going to remind his Holy Father how important his voice is, and making it easier for politicians like me to be able to kind of stand and defend our positions that are, I think, very important positions to take.
Mr. President, final question.
Yes, sir.
You said famously, when you looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes, you saw his soul.
Yeah.
When you look into Benedict XVI's eyes, what do you see?
God.
of the Holy See.
The Pope's address had a gentle bite, urging an end to toxic politics, but appealing to the best of America.
In the land of the free, at the home of the brave.
Minnesota Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar was part of a small delegation serving as the Pope's escort, meeting briefly with Francis, who blessed them.
And just to be that close to him, people often say that you kind of feel this grace and wisdom, and that was true.
Democratic Representative Keith Ellison, the first Muslim congressman, said the Pope's call to action went beyond religion or politics.
He didn't mention a piece of legislation or even a policy or even a candidate. What he talked about are core values, in my view, and he left it up to us to work those things out.
The Pope's wide-ranging remarks could be considered political, but Republican Tom Emmer, a Catholic, said they were anything but.
In between the lines, what I heard was, regardless of your political persuasion, America has an important place in the world, and you're going to have to lead.
Klobuchar's papal visit guest was Timothy Marks, the president of Catholic Charities in Minnesota. He called the emotion in the room overwhelming as the Pope stood with lawmakers under the carving, "In God We Trust,"
which really says we are all one. Our faith, our politics, our personalities mixed together, and we all have an obligation to use the tools and gifts that we have to advance the common good.
President, final question.
Yes, sir.
You said famously, when you looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes, you saw his soul.
Yeah.
When you look into Benedict XVI's eyes, what do you see?
God.
Good way to end the interview.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
is not the cause of Iraq. Pollard should be given leniency. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. When the Baker Commission filed its report saying peace in Israel is related to Iraq, I was the first and only person in the Congress to point out, if tomorrow peace broke out in between Israelis and Palestinians, does anybody think there wouldn't be a full-blown war in Iraq? And conversely, if Iraq were transported to Mars, does anyone think there would not be the terrorism visited upon the Israelis every day? And so let's get it straight. Israel is not the cause of Iraq. Iraq being settled or not settled has nothing to do with Israel's conduct. The second part is people should understand by now, this should be crystal clear, that Israel is the single greatest strength America has in the Middle East. I always say to my friends when they say those things to you, I say, imagine our circumstance in the world were there no Israel. How many battleships would there be? How many troops would be stationed? Now, there's a rationale, in my view, why Pollard should be given leniency. There's a rationale for that. But there is not a rationale to say, no, what happened did not happen and should be pardoned. And my worry is that if we were to move, if I were president, to go and pardon Pollard, you didn't ask me that question, right, but to pardon Pollard would make a lie out of the notion that there are certain rules, period. You cannot give classified information, period, even to a friend. If this were Great Britain, it would be the same thing. There is this inextricable tie between culture, religion, ethnicity, that most people don't fully understand, that is unique and, how can I say it, so strong with Jews worldwide. There is a, I mean, you know, I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
Flamaseus Lucifer matutinus inveniat ille in quam Lucifer qui nescit occasum Christus filius tuus qui regressus ab inferis humano generis serenus illuxit et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization. Thank you all. God bless you all.
Jack Chick talked a lot
about the Jesuits and the Jesuit order. He worked with Edmund Paris and his wife so Chick could publish an English translation of his French book, The Secret History of the Jesuits. It was only because of Jack that I really got into investigating the Jesuits. But the first thing I realized was this: Jesuits are not what they appear to be. I learned a lot of information in a testimony by a young man who escaped from the Jesuits in 1824. Hi, I'm David Daniels from Chick Publications. Maybe once a century, the Lord allows a person to expose the horror of Babylon in its various forms. A modern example is Alberto Rivera. An 1800s example is this young man, Jacopo Leone. Let me tell you his story. Jacopo Leone was a child prodigy. He had a special talent. In the early 1820s, he had invented a form of shorthand. He liked to daydream in class, but he could be called upon at any moment. So he quickly wrote down in abbreviated form every word his teacher said. Then, when he caught him daydreaming or reading another book and told him to recite what was just said, he could recite it word for word. Frustrating, but brilliant. The problem was, even in the 1820s, schools more existed to squash creativity than to encourage it. There's only one exception to this rule that Jacopo knew of: the Jesuits. So, 19-year-old Jacopo finished his studies at the seminary of Vercelli. Then he spent some time with Luigi Guarelli, archpriest of Langosco, halfway between Turin and Milan in northern Italy. Luigi recommended that he try to gain admittance into the Jesuit order. According to Luigi, quote, "None were admitted but such as were distinguished for intellect, wealth, or station." That inflated his ego. So he wrote to Jan Philip Rotan, S.J., a Dutch priest who is rector of a Jesuit college in Turin. Jacopo saw the Jesuits as the most noble of the orders. Rotan recommended Jacopo to take the preliminary exams. In September of 1824, he was met by Rotan at the House of First Probation, where all applicants are probed to see if they are worthy to become Jesuits. Jacopo had never been treated more kindly. Rotan talked with him as if he was his closest friend and confidant. Of course, that was the way it was supposed to feel. Quote, "It would be difficult for me to convey an idea of the consummate art employed to sound a conscience, to descend into the very depths of the inmost heart, and to make all its chords resound, the individual remaining all the while unconscious of the analysis which is going on. So occupied is he by the pleasant flow of the conversation, so beguiled by the air of frank good nature with which the artful process is conducted." In other words, Jacopo was being psychoanalyzed before the days of Freud, just like Alberto said, which you'll see in a few minutes. But Rotan had a larger purpose. Rotan wanted to make sure that Jacopo desired to be a Jesuit more than anything else in the world, and that he was already willing to submit everything to the Jesuit order. And what Rotan wanted was more than Jacopo's testimony. This form of questioning is described right here in the constitutions of the Jesuit order. But that's another video. Jacopo was approved and proceeded to the Jesuit monastery at Chieri, Turin, Italy. He described what happened next. Quote, "On my arrival, they placed in my hands the rules which related to the first phases of my new existence. I was immediately initiated into the exercises of St. Ignatius and of other saints, all Jesuits. It is by this sudden and complete immersion of the soul that they acquire their unlimited power over so many young men, unarmed by experience and totally without defense. What Jacopo did next was sit in silence with the windows shuttered, while his guardian angel, the father over each novice, lectured him on the Jesuit views of sin, the world, and eternal punishment. They told Jacopo that those who don't absolutely submit to the rules of Ignatius of Loyola are, quote, as an army of rebels, angels of darkness, whom Satan inspires and governs, and against whom battle must be waged, until the day of final victory by the army of the faithful, led on by those angels of light and chiefs of the sacred militia, the Jesuits. As for the enemy's camp, he spoke of nothing in it but its reeking pestilence and corruption, end quote. This, plus other exercises, were designed for one purpose, to break down the novice until, quote, each individual who has been wrought upon during a sufficient time comes at last to consider himself religiously bound to the total surrender of his own will, end quote. And it worked. In Jacopo's own words, quote, for I truly believe that the more I should identify myself with a society, the more I should belong to God. And in this deadening of every feeling which might stand in the way of my entire dedication to the order, I perceive nothing but a just and reasonable consequence of its directing principle, that the fewer ties we have with all that might distract us from our purpose, the more will be our power to persuade others to acknowledge that authority which it is the mission of the Jesuits to proclaim, as the only one upon earth which is not subject to error, end quote. Jacopo was overwhelmed at times with the loss of all things that he held dear. Yet never once did he think of renouncing the society. When Jack Chick was arranging the funeral for his daughter Carol back in 2001, one of the men there asked for the Alberto comic series. He told Jack that he'd actually taken the first year of Jesuit training. He said they were tested over and over, and each time more candidates were eliminated. Finally, at the end of the year, there were a number of people standing. The Jesuit teacher then said, those of you who are willing to submit your entire will to the Jesuit order may stay. The rest of you are dismissed. He couldn't go that far. So that was the end of his Jesuit training. So this isn't some ancient story. It's still taking place today. Back to Jacopo. Over the days, the solitude and gloomy subjects of discussion broke down both his spirit and his health. The Jesuits offered him a kind of thick wine that left him feeling kind of sluggish. He tried to fast, but they kindly insisted he take nourishment. They told him the greatest saints in the order had gone through the same thing and done amazing achievements for God. For days, he sat in solitude, on his knees, reading monks' books and meditations while he thought about the beautiful weather outside. One day, he could take it no longer. Jacopo wrote, quote, being tempted by the fine autumn weather to breathe the fresh air and enjoy the sunshine, I begged my guardian angel to ask permission for me of the rector to walk for a few moments alone in the garden. You have only, he replied, to go to him and ask this permission for yourself. You may be certain he'll grant you whatever favor is in his power. 2 days later, on an especially beautiful autumn day, Jacopo resolved to do just that. Quote, it was in the afternoon. I quitted my chamber and went to the rector's apartment, the door of which I found open, although the rector was absent. This circumstance surprised me not a little, as among the Jesuits, everything is conducted with the most exact regularity. This rector was so informal and so personal that Jacopo decided to do what he would never do. He entered the apartment. That's where he found out what the Jesuits were really about. As far as Jacobo was concerned, he'd entered the abode of angels. When he saw the apartment lined with books, he believed they'd only be the finest writings obtainable anywhere. So, since no one was around to tell him no, and he was truly tired of reading the exercises all day long, he started looking at the books. He figured at any moment the rector would return, and Jacobo could present his request to go outside. That's why he didn't hesitate for a moment to take down a book, to look at it. Quote, I raised my hand to a shelf of the library and joyfully seized a volume. To my surprise, I perceived a second row of books behind the first. Curiosity impelled me to take down the volume which had been concealed by the first I laid hold of. The name of the author has escaped my recollection, but it was, I think, a philosopher of the last century. I should have looked at it more deliberately had not a third row of books behind the second struck me by the peculiar style of the binding. What was my astonishment was when this title met my gaze: Confessions of the Novices. The side edges of the book were marked with the letters of the alphabet. Could I do less than to seek for the initial of my own name? Which he did. Quote, the first pages, written probably a few days after my arrival, contained a rough sketch of my character. I was utterly confounded. I recognized my successive confessions, each condensed to a few lines. So clear and accurate was the appreciation given of my temperament, my faculties, my affections, my weaknesses, and my strength, that I saw before my eyes a complete revelation of my own nature. What surprised me above all was the conciseness and energy of the expressions employed to sum up the characteristics of my whole being. The favorite images I found in this depository of outpourings of all sorts from the heart of ingenuous youth were borrowed from the materials used in building: hard, fragile, malleable, coarse, precious, necessary, accessory, a sort of figurative language, which had kept fast hold of my memory. I only regret that I could but glance with the rapidity of lightning over the pages that concerned myself. Yet this glance sufficed to reveal to me the object of such a work. An idea may be formed of it from the passage I'm about to cite, and of which I've retained an indelible remembrance. Quote, the amount, enthusiasm, and imagination with which he is endowed, said the text, might in time be made very useful in varnishing our work. His want of taste for the grotesque in religion will do no harm, but it proves that his talent must be employed in recommending and exalting to the more delicate consciences all that is pure and ennobling in religion. He'd spoil all if we were to let him work on the clumsier part of the edifice, whilst he will greatly aid its advancement if he's employed exclusively in the more delicate parts. Let him be kept, therefore, in the upper regions of thought, and let him not even be aware of the springs which set in movement the vulgar part of the religious world. It is important that he should always have near him, in his moments of depression, someone to cheer him with brilliant anticipations. But should his ardor, on the contrary, lead him too far, some discouragement or disappointment must be prepared for him in order to mortify him and keep him in subjection. End quote. He continues, not an atom of what I had as a matter of conscience revealed to my guardian angel or confessor was omitted in this register. When I recollect what sweeping inductions were drawn from the trifles which I consider myself bound to communicate, I cannot wonder that such a system, so based on profound study of character, pursued with so much assiduity and constancy, and applied on so vast a scale to individuals of every age and every condition, should place in the hands of the Jesuits an almost infallible means for attaining the end to which they have proposed themselves with such extraordinary determination. End quote. Jacopo started to think back over the statements he had heard over his lifetime about the sinister nature of the Jesuit order. Never had he thought they could be true until now. Even his doubts about the so-called miracle stories told him had been related to the rector. He was an open book, and his personality was set down in this open book. Jacopo was so intrigued. He grabbed another book that caught his eye called The Confessions of Strangers. And here was Jacopo's first major discovery. Quote, I hastily read over a few lines, here and there, and the small portions that I read induced me afterwards to believe that everything in this order is done conformably to the rules of that little code known by the name of Monita Secreta, or secret instructions. It was, in fact, a collection of notes upon the persons of every class, of every age, rich men, bachelors, etc. Here again were circumstantial details, propensities, fortune, family, relations, vices, and virtues, together with such anecdotes as were calculated to characterize the personages. It is only in cases of exception, as I have since learned, that a Jesuit remains long in the same place. If he be allowed to continue his sojourn there, it is only when the superiors are convinced of the incontestable utility of the influence which he exercises. Whenever a Jesuit, particularly one of moderate abilities, has used up the resources of his mind in any particular place, and when he seems to have nothing new to produce, the regulations of the order require that he should be placed by another, who may in his turn be remarked and admired for a longer or shorter time. In these frequent changes, there's another advantage. The newcomer, entering upon the sacred office of his predecessor, as soon as he's learnt the names of the persons who choose him for the director of their conscience, can, by means of the register of confessions, furnish himself in a few hours with all the experience acquired by his colleagues. This artifice endows him with the infallible power of surprising, confounding, and subjugating the penitents who kneel beside him. He penetrates them most unexpectedly, and, in a manner unprecedented, introduces himself into the most hidden folds of their hearts. It cannot be told with how much art the Jesuits profit by the astonishment they thus excite, and how adroitly they turn it to the advancement of their work. Thus I have met with rich bigots, old men, and often with young persons of the weaker sex who boldly maintain that the greater number of these reverend fathers are actually endowed with the spirit of prophecy. End quote. The Jesuits weren't just psychoanalyzing him, they were doing this with every single person they met, putting it into code in books like these. In a future video, I'll tell you another story about a Jesuit who showed these things to a Dominican priest. Think about what can happen now with the advent of computers and the internet. When Alberto said the Vatican had a database on everyone, he wasn't just making it up. Even in the 1800s, and probably back to the 1500s, this was going on paper and in code. Jesuits are not what they appear to be. All the time, they are analyzing people to their very core to see how they can use them for their purposes.